Hi everyone, I'm Marcello Laurenti. I'm a first-year PhD student from University of Rome La Sapienza, and today I'm here to talk to you about my study named Generation of Artificial Trajectories for CAD Pipeline through Population-Based Generative Artificial Intelligence. A very long title, but let's dive in. So I'll show you what I've done. So a little bit of backstory. This is actually the second part of a work done with one of my colleagues that is sitting here in this room. And just as a quick recap for the people that hasn't attended the other presentation or maybe doesn't remember, we are trying to fill the gap between as design structure and as printed structure. Obviously, I'm talking about structure produced by additive manufacturing. But why that? Because as design structure lacks all the defect and all the roughness that are already that are instead present in as printed specimen. So if you wanna characterize a structure before actually printing them by using finite element analysis, you would get a very inaccurate prediction by using the very smooth structure. So adding the roughness, technically, it would be possible to better predict both the static behavior and the dynamic behavior of a structure or even a lattice in our case study. But how we are planning to do that? So at first, I will be really quick. At first, we have to acquire some, in a way, the topology of the specimen. And normally, it's used the micro-CT tomography, but we have opted for stereoptical images to make the technique, the framework more accessible to everyone because they are very cheap to obtain. And after some numerical interpolation of the data that was indeed analyzed by my colleague, we are left with a nice reconstruction of the primary profile of the strut. And by doing that, we were planning to build a statistical database in order to generate the structure and to transpose them to the design model. But by using only a statistical approach, we would encounter some complication. As you can see here, the statistical generated sample is quite different from the real sample. And as you can see here, there is an abnormal restriction that would invalidate the finite element analysis behavior because I mean, it's not representative of the real sample. So any simulation by using that structure would be not correct. So our proposed solution is to exchange the statistical database with a deep learning data distribution. So we wanted to use the artificial neural network capabilities to learn complex relationship to generate a more accurate and fidel primary profile. And you can see already here they're really similar, and maybe you couldn't tell them apart if I have not labeled them. So to continue, our deep learning task is a generative one. So what we were trying to do was generating a fake trajectory. So it's a very similar task it's a very similar task to the generation of fake images, okay, that has already been done in the literature, but the generation of artificial trajectories have never been properly explored. There is little by none literature about it, so we have to work from basically scratch. So the model we have implemented in this work are those three family. The autoencoder family, it's generally easy to train, but they give normally blurry outputs. I'm using the blurry analogy to the images because it's difficult to imagine blurry trajectories, but you can imagine too smooth trajectory, okay? So the autoencoder has this problem. The generally generative adversary network family, they are the most famous one and the most used one for generative tasks, but they're generally hard to train because I mean, it's a game the generator and the discriminator are playing, and this training structure is very unstable and could suffer of mode collapse. So, I mean, aside from those cons, they give the best outputs normally. And we have also implemented this new kind of network in the, technically it has not a name. So this is the name I used to call them. And but technically the scientific community hasn't come for a name to this architecture, and they are called the non-adversary network. They are very easy to train. They are unexplored, but they give results very similar to GAN. And in this preliminary study, I just implemented this architecture because it was the most promising, but I'm planning to implement also the other one. As for the network, it's very similar to an autoencoder, as you could have guessed, but it lacks completely the part of the encoder. So basically, we are not constraining the latent space to have any shape, because normally you are constraining the latent space to have a shape of a Gaussian ball or a Gaussian surface. But in our case, the latent space is free to assume any form he wants. But I mean, we are not training the architecture without giving any guidance. So we are using some gradient penalty procedure to actually make this latent space to have a meaningful distribution. But without restriction, the latent distribution, we achieved very high accuracy. So as for the structure, technically it's not called an encoder. That was just an analogy. But our structure is composed by a recurrent neural network that I previously developed in another paper that should be published in the engineering application of artificial intelligence in the next issue. So if you're curious, you could check. But this structure I called the LCA block. Here renamed the RCA block. The R that stands for recurrent neural network. We can use any layer such as LSTM, GRU, or any kind of we have used only LSTM and GRU. The C that stands for CFC. CFC is another recurrent neural network that stands for closed form continuous time neural network. It performs in the approximation of an ordinary differential equation. And so they combined, they can give very accurate prediction. And the A stands for multi-head attention. So there is also an attention mechanism. Another thing, very important thing to mention, the CFC layer is wired by using sparse connection. Sparse connection inspired by the brain structure of these nematodes. So this kind of wiring allowed us to use wider representation, allowing easy training. So this further increased our accuracy in the generation. So we have done half of the work, because defining the architecture is only half of the work. We have also to optimize its hyperparameters. So we couldn't use grid search because our search space was too big, so the wall time would be almost infinite. We could not use Bayesian optimization because our hyperparameter search space was full of categorical and it was too big. So we were risking the Bayesian optimization to fall into a random search. So no real optimization would have been done. So we opted for a genetic optimization algorithm. So for the people that are not familiar to the concept, genetic algorithm is a population-based approach. In our case, for the optimization of a neural network, that means that we had to divide the neural network into blocks. In each blocks would represent a gene, and each ensemble of gene would represent a chromosome, and each ensemble of a chromosome would represent the genome of an individual. But why I'm talking about an individual? Because this, as I said, is a population-based approach. So at the start of the algorithm, we have to build an environment with n individual. Each individual will have its own genome, and each generation, only the fittest individuals will survive and will mate, populating the next generation. So under the pressure of the fitness, each generation will perform better respect the previous one. Okay, so obviously during the mating, there will be a mutation, there will be crossover as in the nature. Okay, so the genome will evolve during the generation. For the fitting, we used a soft DTW loss score. This function is very similar to an Euclidean distance, such as the mean absolute error, but it's quite different because it also considers the temporal sequence, okay, as the input. So it's much more fitter for our purposes and other database sequence. And those are the preliminary results of our developed and trained neural network. As you can see, the AI-generated sample are very, very similar to the real one and are much better than the statistical generation. So I'm a little bit biased, but I mean, maybe without the label, you could not tell them apart. So this is showing the evolution of the best model. This is the recurrent neural network part. This is the multi-layer perception part. As you can see, maybe I'll restart the animation, but as you can see, it tried different structure, different connection, but it actually stabilized in the end to this linear structure and to this ResNet-like structure. And here it's the whole optimization curve. As you can see, during the various generation, new fittest individuals appeared, and I mean, this was the best individuals, but continuing the genetic optimization, actually a cluster of fittest individuals appears. And this underlines the efficiency of this kind of optimization. So, conclusion, we have successfully developed a robust AI optimization framework. I call it robust because I've already used this kind of framework in another presentation in a regression task. So you can use it in any problem, classification, generation, regression. Is pretty robust to any kind of optimization. And because of that, we successfully evolved and trained a model capable of generating samples very similar when compared to a real one. So what's the next step? To implement the autoencoder and the GAN family, they are pretty easy to implement. I was interested to prove the concept before adding complexity to the framework. We have to improve the convergence speed by creating a meta model that is capable to give the final loss of a model, receiving as an input only the few loss of the training procedure. Something like that has already been done in literature. Not every time it works, but I mean, our preliminary results are encouraging. They're encouraging. And we have to assess the structural integrity of our AI-generated sample when compared to the real ones. So we have to run a finite element analysis on both. We have to confront them to see if they really match their behavior. And we have also to extend the AI capability to generate samples built at different angles, because these samples were built at 45 degrees, but I mean, we want to add the possibility for the model to model also samples built in different angles, respect the building place. So that's all. Thanks for your kind attention. And if you have any question, just